Welcome to Beyond the Brink. This is the show that explores global events that are pushing people to their limits and driving them to the brink of change. I'm your host. My name's Christy, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Melissa.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Today, we're deep diving into a digital timepiece that has been counting since 1989, shedding light on the economic heartbeat of the nation. Have you ever ventured into the world of the USdebtclock.org? This privately owned digital marvel was born out of concern in the financially turbulent 1980s under the Reagan era. With his sons by his side, accountant Ed Hall embarked on a labor of love driven by a mission to shine a spotlight on the growing national debt. But the clock's ceaseless ticking is only part of the story. Debtclock.org isn't just a ticker, it's a platform with a mission. Their goal is clear, and that's to raise awareness of the already existing and growing federal debt problem and educate the public on government spending. So before we kick things off, let's hear from all of you awesome viewers out there. If you're tuning in on YouTube or on Rumble, would you give us a thumbs up and a like or a follow?
Hello,
Whatever.
Rumble.
A rumble. Yeah, please. And you can catch up on all of our previous episodes by visiting our website at vitabroadcastnetwork.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for us using the handle at Vita Broadcast. So let's dig into today's content.
Oh, yes, let's do. Boy, I mean, I know a lot of people they might not be aware of this US debt clock. And those of us that are on X are quite aware of it. I mean, I guess those of us that are running in those circles that are kind of giving this attention. But I find it fascinating. And there's several different folks that are kind of covering it. And I thought we'd put our 2 cents in as well. There's so much information that they're sharing. And like you said in the opening, and it was an accountant of all people that created this, and what a legacy he's leaving, he and his sons, with trying to educate the public on things that, this is all public knowledge that's out there, but not necessarily knowledge that we were taught in school.
That's for
Definitely,
sure.
those types of things were kind of overlooked, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I was gonna share my screen, and just kind of show the folks at home watching on YouTube what we're talking about, in case they haven't seen it. Um, this is usdebtclock.org. And on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., they are giving little messages within the debt clock. And when you go to it today, they've got this newest message up there. And can you read that, Christy? Can you see it? Is it?
Yeah, it's a bit small. Are you able to read it or you want me to read it?
If you could read it, it's on my third screen, so I can't see it.
Oh, sure. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places."
Mm, interesting, huh? Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing there. Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
hearing myself here on the phone.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to put my phone away.
Okay. Yep.
All
No
right.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. This is a variety of different messages that keep popping up on this debt clock, and who knows what they're going to put next. But I think it's very interesting of the topics, and when they bring it up, you can kind of start looking into it. And the other day, I think you brought it to my attention. There was a message or a post by Santa Surfing on X, and I'll share my screen again just to kind of show the folks what we're talking about. Um, they had put on their the new usdebtclock.org message a couple of days ago was the Woodrow Wilson
Right.
message.
Yeah.
And I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country because of the dirty illegal Federal Reserve. The value of the dollar dropped to 3 cents in 110 years. Gold in 1913 was around $20 an ounce, and now it's hovering around 2,000. Now that was actually the quote, I'm a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. That was the quote by Woodrow Wilson. The rest of the speak is from Santa Surfing. But
Yeah.
I
A
thought
bit
we
of an ad lib.
yeah, yeah. But I thought we would kind of go over what what that particular post and Woodrow Wilson, the kind of the history over that, um, how that transpired. I think, to be honest with you, I didn't. Again, I think I've kind of fessed up. I didn't pay attention or give a lot of attention in high school history and government. And to be honest, I thought that was for the smart kids, right? I personally, little history of me. I didn't come from the most elite type of family, and I kind of was one of those welfare kids, if you, so to speak. And so back then, you weren't really empowered or lifted up to feel like you could really understand these things. And they sort of placed you in classes based on, how well you did, but also kind of in classes, if you know what I mean. And so I wasn't really put in any of the AP type classes. And
We didn't
and
have AP classes.
well, they
And
did
I'm a
when
bit older than you. We didn't
they
have
did
them. Not
they did when I was in school, but they all of the kids that were going to probably go to college, they were all in a certain class and whatnot. And so when I was in there, I thought, what do I wouldn't pay attention to government, pay attention to, I don't care about this stuff right now, and
well,
boy,
they did have
they
gifted
weren't.
and talented education classes, but we didn't have AP classes, at least not in my high school. Not
Ah,
at all. And
no.
I was like you, Melissa, when I was a young kid, I could care less about history. It really was boring, probably because my teachers were boring. The
Yeah.
classes I enjoyed the most were the classes that where my teachers had energy. Like I loved my science classes because my science teachers were really cool. And
Mhm.
there's a couple of other classes that some of the math classes, I wasn't really good at math, but I enjoyed math because my teachers were really cool. So
Yeah.
it wasn't
It
until
does help
later
to
on in
have a
life.
cool teacher.
Yeah.
Always make a difference, right?
Yeah. And
If
English,
if
forget
they're
that
interested.
noise. Forget it.
I'm learning how to write. I'm getting better and better every day. I tell Ryan, my goal is to improve my vocabulary and my grammar and that. And I know a lot of people are bummed out by this whole AI thing, but I am actually, as an adult, using it to train myself how to write properly and how to speak in vocabulary and things like that. And it's really helping
It's a
me.
great tool, isn't it?
It is if you use it use it properly, I
Use it
suppose,
as a tool,
as
not
a
as a
tool.
not as a thinking instrument or
Yeah,
think for you instrument.
yeah, that's the key, right?
Yeah. I generally write my own stuff and then I'll rerun it in an AI chat
That's what I
and
do.
see where it can improve upon. Sometimes it doesn't need improving, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like, oh, thanks, Claude. You did a great job. I'm so
Well,
proud of you.
that's what I mean is that, I have been using it. And I mean, actually, over the past probably I want to say 7 years now, that I've really been practicing. And whenever I run across a word in my research, right, and in understanding that words matter and that sort of thing, I stop myself and try to learn what the word means, and as I'm reading something. And so over these past 7 years, I've noticed that I'm using words that I didn't use before, and I am using them in the correct way. And then writing things, like you say, you put something together, and I put it in the chat thing and say, please rewrite this for me, or correct for grammar or whatever. And I'm getting better to where you're right. It's less and less that correction needed. And so that makes me feel pretty good. Not perfect, but who is, right? So,
Oh, gee. Well, there went my phone again. I
uh-oh.
actually got booted out of here, so I'm back in now. I apologize for that little interruption.
No problem.
Hey, y'all. I see Mother Goose, and welcome, Mother Goose and Rosemary and Boomer. Good to have you all back. Thanks for
Oh,
joining
friend,
us.
we love it. If you have anything you'd like to contribute, raise your hand and we'll bring you up. We'd love to get some conversation going on around this. Well, one of the things I guess I wanted to kind of start off with, if you don't mind, because I didn't really know this stuff either. And when they were talking about Woodrow Wilson, I kind of wanted, I have a couple resources here that I wanted to touch on. And the one is from the Federal Reserve History.org. Um, and so the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law on December 23rd, 1913, and President Woodrow Wilson signed it, culminating 3 years of discussion and debate over the development of a central bank. And so basically, I don't think I want to read this verbatim, but the nation was confronted with yet another financial crisis in 1907. And the United States only had one of the world's major financial powers without a central bank. And partly, I think we didn't want one, right? I mean, I think we kind of were fighting against having a central bank, right?
Right.
And so this, I think, was kind of used, just like they create these crises that they have going on now. They seem to be using these things to kind of corral the people into a direction that they want them to go in. And so as a result, the finance mogul J.P. Morgan, where do we know that name from? He had bailed out the government out of financial crisis in 1895, organized private sector investments and lines of credits to stabilize the banking system amid the latest pandemic. And then it says, recognizing that the nation could not continue to rely on wealthy individuals to stem an economic and financial crisis, Congress passed the Aldrich-Vreeland Act on May 30th, 1908. The legislation provided for the issuance of emergency currency and created the 18-member National Monetary Commission that was chaired by Senator Nelson Aldrich to determine what changes were necessary to the nation's monetary system and laws relating to banking and currency. So they, these things take a little bit of time to develop, right? I don't know if you have what I'm looking at pulled up. Do you?
I do. I was searching a little bit more on
Yeah.
Woodrow Wilson because something came up in my head that he was one of our early progressive presidents. And so I find it a bit disingenuous to say he was a most unhappy man that unwittingly ruined the United States. He knew exactly what he was doing by bringing in the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
because, he just was one of those academics that just felt like if you're not an educated person, you're nothing.
Mm.
The government needs to help us uneducated folks.
Because you're too stupid to know what's going on.
Oh. So I'm looking up that quote. So I don't mean to interrupt you, but yes, I have what you have up. But I'm checking his quote. It's a great industrial known controlled by the system.
There's a quite lengthy quote from him that I would touch on in a down the road here.
Well, yeah. It says it's a remixing of words said about turn of the century in banking, where he proposed to solve using the Federal Reserve. And then it says, a great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. It's a quote from Monopoly or Opportunity, 1912, criticizing the credit situation before the Federal Reserve was created.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew he was not a good president for us. Well, it was Calhoun that was a better president. He was more of a
definitely doomed us.
Yes, he did
with his decisions, but he didn't operate alone. Can I go on with this?
Of course, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, it's so this is saying that recognizing that the nation could not go on or could not continue to rely on wealthy individuals to stem an economic and financial crisis, they passed the Aldrich-Vreeland Act, and that was May 30th, 1908. And then over the next 3 years, the commission traveled to the major capitals of Europe and hosted a number of hearings in the United States. And in January 1911, Aldrich unveiled a plan that, after a year of revision by the commission, was presented to Congress in 1912 and called for a National Reserve Association. And although the bill did not come forward until 1912, it had been under development for years, going back to November 1910, meeting investment banker Paul Warburg, Treasury official Adam Platt, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Andrew, and others on Jekyll Island, Georgia. The then secret meeting was organized by financiers and I probably said that wrong, financiers and bankers who recognized the nation's need for a central bank and wanted to begin the process. Because they did not think the public would welcome a plan crafted in part by bankers, they made an extraordinary effort to keep the meeting secret, only using first names and telling others that they were on a duck hunting trip. And so, okay.
So the lies continue.
So I'm going to continue reading through this, but just to talk about this part for just a second here. So those of us that have been giving this any attention, we're realizing it's miles down the road by the time the public is hearing about things. I mean, we know this now. And so they've been setting themselves up. They were setting themselves up. They had the crises going on, problem, reaction, solution. It happens time and time again. They had this set up. And it's my opinion that this was the plan always. They wanted America to get a central bank and get back into the trap of being indebted to someone else and not being sovereign. That was the goal, right? I mean, why would they want us to be independent of them? And given the way that we fought for our freedoms, I would think that they didn't think it would be welcomed very easily, right? So they have to concoct something to get people to fall into it, right? We have to do this type of thing.
Well, look how much Woodrow Wilson was involved. I mean, he was not a big fan of the Constitution. It was getting in his way of putting in programs he wanted to put in. So why not shuffle in this new program that's going to I don't know, what would you say? Imprison the people,
Yeah.
that's going to slowly rob them over time. I'm not so sure if they knew back in the Jekyll Island days. Maybe they did, because I think they were all whipped up in I was going to say witchcraft, but that's probably a stretch. But in their kind of thinking at having a set inflation rate, at somewhere along the line, that's going to blow up at some point and come to a point where you have that Cantillon effect, where there is no more middle class, but well beyond their life, obviously. So they're not here to see the fruits of their labor. It's their family, the generational wealth, if you will, who's seeing the fruits of their relatives' labor.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to welcome in Toasty. Thanks for coming. So I want to pick back up where we left off with this, and for those of you that are just joining, we're talking about Woodrow Wilson and his decision to sign us over to the bankers, and so Eldred's his proposal was attacked initially by the committees in both chambers for giving too little control to the government and too much power to bankers, especially those who ran the largest institutions. Among other features, the plan called for a 46-member board with only 6 appointed by the government, and one of those, the head of the organization, selected from a list of 3 names supplied by the association. Unlike the first and second banks of the United States, the government would have no stake in the National Reserve Association. Huh. Right?
Yeah.
So they didn't like it, but apparently after 1912, the election, any chance the Aldrich plan had of success was gone. Opposition to the proposal was a plank in the Democrat platform, with Democrat Woodrow Wilson winning the presidential election and Democrats holding control of both houses. The banking community, which had strongly backed the Aldrich plan, became anxious about what plan the new administration would propose.
How long have we been selecting our presidents?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've been lied to. I know I've been lied to my whole life about pretty much everything that I thought was true. Most of it's not true. And that's just frustrating and disappointing. And, like I said, I guess it's good that I didn't really pay so much attention when I was younger.
Well, okay.
Having to learn all this stuff now anyway. So
look what happened. We didn't pay attention. We didn't know we were getting indoctrinated, but we've caught up and we know, I'm sorry. It must be my snarky mood today or whatever the case is. But as you're reading through this, I have these little snarky thought bubbles that just keep popping up because they're just one gem after another. So my apologies up, in advance, because I know there's going to be more of them to follow.
No problem.
Before we go on, Mother Goose here, I had a couple things to say. She said, couple things here. It says, she said, I don't think we, the people, really knew what central banking, the Babylonian money magic back then, what that meant, what that was going to be. And then she did say in 1900, only 10% of the population was educated beyond a functional level.
Oh, good points.
Very good points.
Yeah. Which, again, I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good to know.
Hence, that's why she is the Mother Goose.
Mother Goose. Yeah, Mother Goose, you're laying it down. I'm digging your posting. Very, very cool. I'm glad you joined our posse.
Yes.
It's funny, like my little old me and a posse leader is not really accurate, but I am awful glad to have people joining us. I mean, Toasty, Toasty, I believe, were you doing a little karaoke the other night, Toasty? Or was I in a different space? Um, but and I know Rosemary was, so we had some fun with that. And yeah, yes, he was. uh,
Oh,
yep, thumbs
I'm
up.
missing something here. Where are you, Toasty? I don't see you remarking
He,
here.
he has an awesome singing voice. We had a good night the other night on Gotta Be Karaoke on Saturday nights. Our friend does it, and it's a great fun for any of you interested in partaking in song.
Is that here on Spaces?
It is, yeah.
How cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool. I had a fantastic time. I this is probably the third time I've participated, and I've listened in a couple of more times before that, before I got the courage to sing. But they're just a welcoming bunch of folks, and yeah, Tosi's giving the thumbs up, and Rosemary, she sings in there, and we just have a great time. So
Oh, that's terrific. You have a
yeah,
great voice, Melissa. So I don't know
they
what the problem is.
yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So back to the House Banking and Currency Committee. So they assigned a subcommittee under the leadership of Representative Carter Glass to explore reform proposals.
Mhm.
Glass quickly enlisted the help of Henry Parker Willis, a professor at Washington and Lee University. Willis, who also wrote for the New York Journal of Commerce, would come to wield enormous influence over a subcommittee whose member had little knowledge of banking and finance. And so, this is another point where you have a small amount of folks that wield a tremendous amount of control and power in decision making, that they have the power to bamboozle over, just much like what we have going on now. You have all of these people in Congress that they're supposed to be reading these bills that are passed, and there is no way, if you've paid attention to any of the people that are serving us, um, you can't tell me that they're reading these thousands and thousands of pages of bills, or even have knowledge to understand what they're even voting for. I
Mhm.
just don't believe it. I have a real big problem with the fact that they have so many different issues and pages. And it's by design, because they don't want the public to understand what it is. And I don't think they want the Congress people to understand either what they're voting for. And so here, you have something as important as turning our entire financial system over to bankers. you know, um, and they don't even, under the committee that's going to decide this, they don't even have the education with banking and finance. So how do you think that went? I mean,
I'd say we
um,
had an insurrection back in 1913.
right? That's the thing. You know, we've always been told that we're the land of the free, and everyone looks to us, and we're uh I don't know, like we're the leaders of the free world and all this kind of stuff. And they also call us the great experiment. And, as
And
I
laughing all the way.
honestly, I mean,
Oh my
we are
gosh.
the great experiment. And there's, even if you look at other countries with the stuff that I'm getting off track here, but the things that they won't allow, the chemicals they won't allow in their food, and their atmosphere and all those types of things, they laugh at us. Ryan's been to many other countries, and he says they know more about our government than we do, right?
Yeah.
We're just not, most people just don't give it any attention at all. And we think that we're so free, and in actuality we're probably the most brainwashed of any population, which, I don't know, that could be a big
Yeah.
statement for coming out of my mouth, but that's very disappointing to me. But in any event, um, I'm going to keep reading on this. Is that good? Is that okay? Is it?
Yep.
So, all right. So
It's
the
all good.
legislation,
It's good.
all right. The legislation that Glass introduced had some aspects in common with the Aldrich plan, but there were major differences. While Aldrich would have created a central body, the Glass bill provided for a system of regional banks. Glass, in fact, favored as many as 20 regional banks throughout the country and did not like the idea of a central coordinating board. Glass also believed firmly in autonomous regional banks, later writing a memoir in the United States with its immense area, numerous natural divisions, still more numerous competing divisions, and abundant outlets to foreign countries. There's no argument either of banking theory or expediency which dictates the creation of a single central banking institution, no matter how skillfully managed, how carefully controlled, or how patriotically conducted. Glass also did not like the idea of government control. Like Aldrich, his plan gave most of the authority to bankers. Wilson, however, felt the plan needed an oversight agency. He also believed strongly that neither Congress nor the public would support a proposal that gave the government little control. So,
Mm.
early on, Glass had suggested that the comptroller of the currency perform a coordinating function over the system, but Wilson favored a central board, a provision creating the Federal Reserve was added to exercise supervisory authority over the banks. It was made up entirely of president appointees, either ex officio or members because of their cabinet positions, or appointees to the board for specific terms to provide bankers with a voice. Wilson also created the Federal Advisory Council, a group of 12 bankers elected by the regional banks that would occasionally meet with the board. So,
Mother
what are you
Goose
thinking of?
pops in here and she goes, we know what they want us to know.
Yeah, which is not a whole lot.
Yeah.
In the whole, which would occasionally meet with the board. That's kind of like occasionally supposed to be testing on the what do I want to say? I can't say the big V's for the peeps, for the children, make sure that they're safe and effective. They're supposed to have an oversight committee on that stuff. And golly gee, sometimes
So
they
we,
just
the
don't do it.
people, we're on a need to know basis.
Yes. Yes.
So they determine what we need to know.
You guys will be
how
glad to
sad
know
things
this part's almost over, but I'm going to finish I'm going to finish this, dang it, federalreservehistory.org, which I do want to mention that that's also where I got the picture for our thumbnail. So much of the early congressional criticism, I wanted to shout out in case they ding us. Much of the earlier congressional criticism of the bill focused on the fact that Glass's subcommittee had largely done its work secretly, with Republicans having little involvement in crafting the legislation. Well, that's a surprise. The more substantive debate, however, focused on the issues of control, especially the power of the central board. In the Senate, the debate was generally much more informed and varied than in the House, with senators generally favoring more centralization. Support also began to emerge for a measure offered by Oklahoma Democrat Senator Robert L. Owen, which was similar to the House bill, but with a few changes, such as limiting the number of reserve banks to no more than 12. Owen also removed the Secretary of Agriculture and the Comptroller of Currency from the Federal Reserve Board and changed the capital of the system to 6% of member banks' capital and the surplus from 20% of capital in the House bill. The move was seen as favorable to smaller banks, and Owen's bill prevailed. There were certainly differences between the final bills that passed both chambers, but they had much in common. Matters worked out in committee. Oh, look at, we're just working together. Matters worked out in committee included the number of reserve banks, which ended up specifying between 8 and 12, and the makeup of the Federal Reserve Board, including the return of the comptroller of the currency to the board. As far as the terms of the Federal Reserve governors, they agreed on staggered terms and extended them from 6 to 8 years in the approval bills to 10 to ensure no president could appoint all governors during a two-term presidency. The Federal Reserve Act was signed by
Covered all
President
the bases.
Wilson on December 23rd, 1913. So,
So Jekyll Island was just the, hey, dudes, we've got you
Hey.
here. You know, the Titanic sank. So the people that weren't supposed to be there didn't make it.
yeah.
And so they go to Jekyll Island, right? And so this is this plan was hatched long before they got to Jekyll Island.
I
It was
concur.
just, let's finish it up. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just seal the deal. We're going to leave this island. We're going to swap spit and we're going to, you know, exchange blood or have some sort of blackmail on each other. So we don't talk about things. And the meetings that took place here on Jekyll Island are not to be shared until Edward G. Griffin came along.
Oh, I love him.
I do too.
He is one of my favorites. And I was so bummed out that I didn't go to the Silver Symposium because he was there and I could have been fangirl, got my book signed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a truth teller right there. Let's see. So Mother Goose, let's see. She put in a post here. May I share?
Yeah.
You might be able to get this on the space if you could bring up her. It's Babylonian magic. The Raglu ritual. Hopefully, I'm saying or Raklu ritual, invoking the gods to destroy. Shamash, the god of the sun and justice. They destroy those that work evil magic and to unbind that sorcery. This ancient 3,000-year-old ritual is among the most complex forms of counter magic known in the world. So I'm going to open this up. There's a video that goes with this, 54 minutes. So we'll just have to put this in as a link. Yeah, interesting find. The video is by Esoterica on the Esoterica channel on YouTube, and it's called Babylonian Magic. Just as I said. So I'm going to see if I can share this in the chat.
That would be great.
So there you go. Good share. Thank you very much. And that is why she is the Mother Goose.
Mother Goose. So there was one other, it's very short, but this actually has it's a short little synopsis, or I don't know if that's the right word, short little overview article about Woodrow Wilson and kind of, you know, what happened. And so I thought I'd just go over that. And then
Sure.
And then we should talk about the debt clock and the creators of it and that sort of thing. But so this is from npr.org. I went old school with this. This was written in December 23rd, 2013, it's entitled "A Locked Door, A Secret Meeting and the Birth of the Fed." And so, as we said earlier, 1907, the economy was in the grip of a financial crisis. Unemployment was up, stock market was down. People started panicking. They were lining up overnight to pull their money out of healthy banks. And this can be deadly for our economy. Healthy banks have to shut down. Businesses can't get credit. They lay people off. The economy gets worse. Well, I read that and I was like, what's happening? Richard, what's happening now? Right? We're finding ourselves
Melissa,
in a similar situation.
That's right. Did you notice when this article was written? 100 years after
Oh,
uh after
yeah.
the Federal Reserve history, after Woodrow Wilson
Good
signed the
catch.
Federal Reserve Act, December 23rd, 1913, and this article from NPR,
December
December
23rd.
23rd, 2013.
Isn't that interesting? You know,
So,
this is like a side note. Uh when Trump first came into office, and and then we had the pandemic issues going on, and he kept talking about the flu, and going back in the day, of kind of what was happening. um this is happening all over again. It's a similar, it's like, what do they say? History repeats itself. It doesn't repeat itself necessarily, but often rhymes. Well, we're rhyming like Busta Rhymes, or I can't even think of any rappers. What I mean, we're putting on some rhyming right now. So but in any event, so back to this. They said, this article says, at the time, the US government had no way to deal with panic. There was no institution that could step in to stop to run on healthy banks. And so the job of stopping the panic fell to one man. Does anybody want to guess who
it's
that
not
man
so.
was? Who was he? Who
Say it's
was
not
he?
so.
He is the one, the only, never been another one like him. JP Morgan of JP Morgan fame. He summons dozens of the leading financiers in New York to his private library on Madison Avenue and essentially ordered them to contribute to a $25 million pool that would be used to backstop the system. Then he locked them in and made them stay there through the night until they all agreed to his plan. And the plan worked. It essentially ended the panic in 1907. But some powerful people in Washington wondered, what about the next panic? Do we really want the fate of the US economy to hinge on one rich guy in New York? One person in particular decided that this was a problem, and that was who we were just talking about, Senator Nelson Aldrich, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. Aldrich knew there was something America could do so they would no longer have to rely on one guy to end panics. The US could create a central bank. So, okay, problem, reaction, solution. You got, and then, so, all right, we got this happened. This guy had some money and they threw some stuff in. And now we're beholden to that guy, and we don't really want to be beholden to one guy. So maybe we should be kind of reliant on a group. Let's have a central bank. That would be a great idea, right? So, and then of course, because the initial thing worked with the bailout, the bailout from JP Morgan, then people just kind of they probably felt a sigh of relief, and so this was a little bit easier to kind of put it in. And so anyway, it says, he said, one person in particular decided that this was a problem, and it was Senator Nelson Aldrich, chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, who obviously, when you're paying attention to the stuff that's going on right now, those positions in our government are very important. Look what this guy did. So Aldrich knew there was something America could do that it would no longer have to rely on one guy to end it. They would have to create the central bank, and it wasn't a new invention. Countries in Europe already had central banks, and during panics, the central banks basically did what JP Morgan did in the US, act as lenders of last resort for healthy banks. When depositors were lined up out the door yelling for their money, banks that were basically sound could borrow money from the central bank. Well, okay, but just consider the name central bank. Throughout American history, both of those words, central and bank, have been deeply unpopular. The thought of a bunch of rich bankers in New York controlling a powerful central bank did not inspire confidence, as it wouldn't today.
It still doesn't.
right? I mean,
Yeah, it
even
doesn't.
more, you had even more back then. But then, of course, as Mother Goose said, you didn't have, the majority of the population wasn't really up to speed in the education department. And that's all by design. I mean, as you and I did a show a while back on Bitcoin and zero, how many years did they withheld the math when it came to the zeros? It was thousands of years, right? Like craziness, crazy amount of time that they hold back information from folks. So it's not surprising that people weren't super educated back then. So I mean, I guess they would have been easier
And
to
still not
manipulate.
now either.
Yeah.
I think it's all relative.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then I mean, we're educated now, but we're indoctrinated to what they want us
Right.
to believe instead of really,
Right.
even though all of this stuff is out in the open, unless you make an effort to give it some of your attention, you don't really realize it. And to be honest, for a lot of people, it's probably easier not to know, right? Because you just go about your life and it's no big whoop and whatevs. And it's all fine and good until it really comes into your backyard and people you see are losing everything and have no rights and freedoms left. So that's just my 2
Well,
cents.
it's like being watching the Matrix or being in the Matrix. And I can't remember the character's part, but he worked one of the controls and he basically sold out the team, right? Morpheus and Neo. So because he wanted to be able to taste a juicy steak. That's really what he wanted. He didn't want to have that much that they were having in their hovercraft or whatever whatever the name of their ship was. But it was like, yeah, I want to taste the steak, man. That's what I want on my memory. It's okay. Just brainwash me.
You said steak, and I want one right now so bad. I could go for a juicy steak right now with blue cheese crumbles on top. I'm so hungry.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
I
Yeah,
went to
you bet.
Christy's house one day and she made me the best steak ever. And I'm gonna
I
have to
put
try
butter
it
on
just
it
to
too,
get.
didn't I?
Oh my gosh. Yes, you most certainly did. And it was delicious. Best steak I've had. All
In my
right,
butter.
Melissa. I love butter too.
Okay.
All right. And so back to the NPR article. So still Eldridge, he realized that he needed bankers to help draw up the plan for a central bank. So he came up with a plan to gather in secret. So he told a handful of New York bankers, to go on a given night, one by one, to a train station in New Jersey. There, they would find a private rail car hitched to the back of a southbound train to conceal their identities. Eldridge told the bankers to come dressed as duck hunters and to address each other only by first name. The train headed south, and the bankers got off in Georgia. They spent the next week holed up in a private club at a place called Jekyll Island. Apparently, the name didn't sound as sketchy then as it does today. That's funny. As Jekyll Island, at Jekyll Island, Eldridge and the bankers came up with a plan. They knew many Americans thought a central bank would become too powerful, too influential in the economy. So they came up with a classic American workaround. They decided the U.S. should create lots of little central banks scattered all over the country. The plan they came up with still had a long way to go. It got shot down the first time in Congress because they were kind of pretending like they were stopping it. That's me. The plan for a central bank was debated, changed significantly, renamed, but the basic idea held up. And on December 23rd, 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. Creating the Fed did not solve the nation's economic problems. In fact, a few decades after the Fed was created, its policies made the Great Depression worse. And the Fed has changed significantly over the course of a century. But even after all those changes, there are still a dozen federal banks Federal Reserve banks scattered around the country in cities like Dallas, Richmond, and of course, New York. So,
And San Francisco.
and San yeah. So they're all over the place.
Yep.
They didn't.
Did they say Kansas? Yes, they're in Kansas as well.
I think that's where the Jackson Hole
Well, Wyoming. Yep.
yeah, but the Kansas City Fed meets at Jackson Hole.
Right.
That's what
Yep.
that's what but yeah, so it's one of those things where this was kind of, it happened. It was, the wool was pulled over a bunch of people's eyes, or possibly just people, like they are today, just busy, no one giving it any attention whatsoever. And then you've got all the drama and you've got the pretending, we're fixing this, they're debating back and forth. And you pick the winner, like you pick, not the winner, you pick the person that you're going to back, right? These politicians. I mean, my mom voted for people because they were cute, right? I mean, there's people that just, people that aren't into giving this any attention or whatever. They
He's so
still
nice.
Always like, he seemed like a nice guy.
He's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
he's only a mass murderer, but child, pedophile and that kind of thing.
Oh gosh, don't even get us started on that.
So Mother Goose is laying more wisdom out here, and she says, it doesn't matter if we believe this. They believe it and act accordingly.
You need to start making some memes, or maybe you do, Mother Goose, making some meme one-liners from Mother Goose, and have your little avatar watermark on them, and or like have like a mic drop, bink, make your statement.
She could be like a Helen Henning. You ever see the Helen Henning post?
No.
She's just, go check out Helen Henning. Nice. Mother Goose could give her competition. Yes, easily. Helen Henning, she's a trip. You'll find her on X.
Oh, we got a request. Yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Mother Goose.
Who's going to speak?
I just approved.
Ooh, right on.
I'm so glad I saw it too. I can't wait.
Right on.
We got a speaker.
Come on.
Well, I approved her, but she's still showing as
I'm hearing something. Yeah, she's on here as a speaker.
There we go. You might have.
She's back as a listener again.
I'm showing. Sometimes it's tricky with people's mics if you don't give access to your mic. That doesn't. Well, I'll keep my eye open for her to request as a speaker. So you think we should move on? You pulled up, you brought a bunch of debt clock factoids, and so the whole point of this this episode, Beyond the Brink, is because they are posting this. The usdebtclock.org has been posting all these little factoids, and so that was the one that we just went over with Woodrow Wilson. But where did this come from, Christy? Did you want to share what you know on that? Start going over some of your factoids.
Sure. So the debtclock.org website is owned and operated privately by a gentleman named Ed Hall and his sons. And I think you alluded to that earlier, that he is an accountant, or was an accountant. I believe he is. The site was created in 1989, and he was concerned about the rising national debt in the 1980s. So I see that sentence was rewritten twice. He created the site as a labor of love to bring attention to the issue of the national debt. It remained a private site run by Hall and his sons, rather than having any governmental funding or organizational affiliation. And isn't that interesting that it is still that way to this day?
Yeah.
Its goal is to raise awareness of the already existing and still growing federal debt and to educate the public on government spending. They clearly have a viewpoint of their own and an agenda to highlight federal debt and spending they consider to be problematic. So they feel it's problematic. Those may not, others may not feel it's problematic. I mean, I think we're all in the camp that it is problematic.
Yeah.
The context provided around the raw data generally highlights the risks and negatives of high debt, but the raw data itself is factual. Even the context and messaging around it contains a perspective. And this reflects the creator's fiscally conservative ideology, but they don't falsify the data at all.
Mm.
Kind of cool. When you look at something like that, especially when there are memes popping up on it and everything, you think, well, are they just kind of really messing around with it? But they have integrity in their reporting, so they're having a little fun with it too.
Yeah.
But the data is solid. It's factual. The data comes from official government sources like the U.S. Treasury and the Congressional Budget Office. And there's some legitimate debates around about how to interpret this data. But the raw numbers, like I said, are factual. So that's kind of cool. So all the figures on the national debt, budget deficits, interest costs, they come directly from data published by the U.S. Treasury. So, and the site links to these sources and updates frequently as new official data is published. So there's nothing to hide on the debt clock.
No.
So you can look at it and see that it's facts, but you have to draw your own interpretations from it. At least that's what I'm reading. So some critics have accused the site of presenting data in a biased or misleading way to further a political agenda. I'm not so sure about that. I think I'm in this camp where it says others say it simply presents facts and leaves interpretation to readers.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So some economists and policy analysts have argued the site cherry picks or selectively presents data in a way that overemphasizes debt risks.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Melissa, but how much have we read from economists, not the Keynesian type, but the ones, that are more along the Austrian economics mindset, free markets, not credit markets, okay, or a credit-driven economy. It seems as though the people that lean along that way agree with the perspectives that the debt clock puts out. Now, reasonable people can disagree on the framing of how they frame things, but the facts are good. So
well,
when
they are putting those points out there, even if it is kind of where they're saying it's leaning one way or they're cherry picking numbers or whatever, if information's presented to you that provokes you to give it some of your attention and it makes you look up something to prove or disprove, it's done its job. It's doing its job. It's very important that these things happen where you're looking into something, you read a statement and you're like, oh, this is a bunch of BS or whatever. That is their goal, is to educate people. And what better is to educate than to engage those that you're educating and encourage them to think for themselves and look up this information for themselves. And so these little clues are fun and educational. In my opinion, I see Mother Goose is back up as a speaker. Hopefully,
there you go. Yeah, good. Yeah, let's bring her on.
I did step up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Hi. Yes.
Hi, nice to meet everybody.
Hey there.
Welcome, Mother Goose. I love the name.
Well, thank you. The Great Awakening is my favorite story.
Mine too.
Mine too. But you said I should be making memes and stuff. I've been podcasting for really quite a number of years and about a lot of these different things. And I'm really glad to see you guys come to the table and start new discussions.
Oh, thank you. What's the name of your podcast? Where can people find your podcast at?
Well, I lost my channel not too long ago. I'm rebuilding. I'm all over the place, but I'm about to get organized and start putting it out. But Our Mother Goose um, on YouTube, and I have it, Odyssey and Rumble and all kinds of channels. We had years of work taken away when they started restricting some of the channels. Sometimes I would just take down one video or another, but sometimes they would take your whole channel if you got too much over the target. So we're kind of laying low and hoping that this great awakening is really happening this month. And I think it might be. I was really encouraged by Trump's declaration that this was going to be a November to remember.
I hear it.
Yeah, supposedly the biggest event in our history.
I don't know about you, but there's been some really funky energy.
Huh?
Oh, what I was saying, Mother Goose, is that it just seems like there's some really funky energy with people, and I just feel it all over the place. And it just may be just the November to remember, as you're talking about.
It's going to be an interesting month. I'm excited for it.
It really is. And most of the people that I find are really having a hard time now do not have a center with a source, with creator. Whatever name they might give creator, they're not connected. And can you even imagine what this world would look like to somebody who's not connected in spirit and who has not been studying and listening and learning all the things that we've been learning in these recent years? I mean, it's always been around. We're simply learning about it.
Yes.
It's surprising how far back it goes.
What's encouraging, Mother Goose, is that there's so many folks now that are coming on board that it's incredibly fun. And I followed the Q boards and things like that several years ago, and it's just fun to run into people and you might say something and you get the nod, and the wink of the eye, and it's the unspoken.
Oh yeah.
Because you just know that it's the if type thing. But I'm just I'm really encouraged by the amount of people that are coming on board and starting to ask questions, and it's really important that they have a network of folks to go to that are pointing them towards information that's legitimate, right? That they can look up for themselves and get them involved. I think early on when I came into the space, there was a lot of quote unquote influencers who they were pretty much wanting to replace the media with themselves as the keeper of the information, right? And that's not the point. That's not the point of this this exercise that we're going through.
Some of them got off onto little platforms like MeWe and I can't think what the other one was.
They
turned into bullies.
Yeah.
They turned into bullies. You go in and you start to try to start a conversation in one of their groups, and the group has already decided what they think. And you better not think outside that box or you'll be ostracized. And it was, I'm thinking these are the people who are supposed to be coming forward and changing the world, but maybe it's a lot like Alex Jones. You know, we all know he's cuckoo, but boy, most of us got our first pills from Alex Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
I think everything happened the way it was supposed to, but
it's
we're getting
it's very exciting. It's very exciting, and I want you to keep us updated on your show and however we can help you get your message out there, get your show out there. Let us know. We'll repost it for you. So
neat.
we thank you so
Neat.
much for stopping by.
Well, you know, I'm looking to put together some roundtable discussions on. I use Zoom,
Okay. Yep. Me too.
I'm looking to put together some roundtable discussions on Zoom on some of these subjects that would bring in a lot of the questions that the public might have. Because I think we've put ourselves in a position of, at least I am hoping to bring the real truth to the table when we finally know what the hell that is.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been serving truth, or what we call truth, and there has been a lot of truth, but even Q said that disinformation is necessary, and it is. And it is.
Yeah.
So
That's why I've kind of focused my attention more on the financial goings on, because as we're talking about this debt clock, and I think that a lot of the Q drops did have a lot to do with the financial system. They were clues regarding that. There are multiple meanings exist and that sort of thing. And then as we just said earlier, with history repeating itself or rhyming, with creating these, controversies or like the pandemic and crises, and then being able to come in and do it. And I think that
Hegelian.
They were intentionally or intending on, I think, cornering the market on the blockchain and the CBDCs and all those things to kind of corral us in. And they didn't bank on the people waking up as we have, and us actually doing what we should do, which is lifting our brothers and sisters up and trying to help them come along, because an educated public is not as easily manipulated as you said earlier. 10% of the folks were even educated. So that's what makes this so exciting.
They could count bales of hay and pounds of flour in the barn.
Right.
They could sign their name.
Yeah.
They could, they could do the rudimentary, what they call functional literacy. And that was all that was afforded to anybody who wasn't, in the upper class.
Well, we could go down this rabbit hole for a while. we should get back to
we have a new one. We have a new debt clock right this minute. And it's for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. And this is the 7th sealed meme that they put up on the debt clock. You see the seal there in the middle of it?
Yeah.
So all the Sundays,
I'm going to share my screen again. If I can find. And
all the Tuesdays and Thursdays were the cartoons lessons.
So wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that, Christy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and tell us what you know about that. Because you're noticing some things that I didn't notice. And you're saying the cartoons and repeat what you just said.
Yeah. So there's a new debt clock presentation Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Yep. And I haven't nailed this down 100%, but I think Tuesdays is our forefathers. Thursdays is kind of cartoon lessons, and Sunday has been spiritual all the way
All the time.
Hmm.
on the Sunday one,
Interesting.
and that that comes out at 3 p.m. Sunday Pacific, which is where Christy and I sit,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
so and it's up to 6 hours. Now, something else you might want to look at the top of the debt clock, and over to the right of the underlined URL there is a little button that says time machine.
Oh, yes.
Do you see that?
Yep.
So we have only had US Treasury dollars back on the US. In fact, it may never have been on the debt clock, but we've only had US Treasury dollars back in our world for a very, very short period of time. And you can pop back through the debt clock and see the major financial changes as they went on. And a lot of those things you can hover over them, and they'll bring up information cards. They're just fascinating, some of them.
Yeah, they are. They really are. They really are. Well, and what did you say, Christy? This debt clock was created in 1980 something, I believe.
1980,
Yeah.
89.
89.
Yeah, and it was just the one thing I actually remember it. I'm 73 years old, and I remember when that debt clock went up, and all it was a debt clock hanging on a building in Manhattan.
Wow, that's so cool that you actually remember that and seeing that when it first happened, because
it was shocking.
This is good for you to be because you're old school. You remember this, you saw it with your own eyes. For the folks out there that doubt, that say, oh, this is just some conspiracy theorist person throwing up this debt clock, blah blah blah. We're telling you,
that's kind of why I pointed out the time machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people can actually go back and see the progression. There wasn't, before the Babylonian money magic, the derivatives and all of that crazy crap, we were a sovereign nation, and it obviously doesn't go back that far, but it keeps a lot of records. And, along the way, at one point, we had silver money and gold money, and then we went down to 90% silver, and then went down to 40% silver in our coins. And it really follows that. You can follow that whole thing right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very cool. For those of you who haven't checked it out, usdebtclock.org is where you want to go and just have fun with it. Kind of click around, start looking at the numbers. And, you might not know exactly what you're looking at. It's very overwhelming to see all these numbers moving around, but just take a little piece by piece and notice which numbers are going up, notice which numbers are going down, and then speculate. Why do you think that is? What do you think it could mean? And that's what I've been doing. And then, of course, these little notes that have been popping up, Christy and I have been looking into them to see what they mean, and educating ourselves a little bit more on why we're in the pickle that we're in right now. Did you have more, Christy, that you from?
Well, going back and looking at this on Santa surfing, and I believe this post was on Tuesday or Thursday.
I think that's right.
And it was the meme day, right? And it also had a image of the United States postage stamp at the time, had Woodrow Wilson on it. And then as I'm looking farther down, it has a little factoid here about Benjamin Franklin founded the inaugural post office, which served as a dual purpose as a banking institution. Stamps and money orders acquired at the post office held an equivalent value to currency, being recognized as such. Additionally, Franklin introduced the Fugio cent, marking the inception of the first circulated coin. Now, this
Mm.
takes me back a little bit to some other movements that we've looked into. Whereas you have the United States Post Office, and then you have the Postal Service,
Yeah.
which, okay, it's going out of the weeds a little bit, but could it possibly be, I don't know if it's coincidental. I just don't believe in coincidences, that this has to be somewhat related, but it's another example of two systems of government, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the post office that functions like a bank, which way back when, a bank, post office used to be, near a courthouse and so forth. They usually ran together, right? That's not the case anymore. But you have the United States Postal Service, but we still have a post office operation. If you look at our court systems, you have those that operate in a maritime system. Those would be your fee-generated courts like traffic court, administrative law courts like family, civil disputes, that type of thing. And here we have two systems of government that are literally working. And I think
Interesting.
it just kind of strikes me that the Federal Reserve System is just, I don't know, maybe it helped light a fire under the rapid expansion of a two-tier government system. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I
think,
or is that just some weird crap coming out of my head?
no, I mean, I think all of this is good. Even if we're not exactly right in what we're speculating, or that we're asking questions, and hopefully if there's any folks out there that have opinions, or they know something for it to be a fact or whatever, join us, let us know, put comments down below, or put a comment on the YouTube, or reach out to us and let us know. Or if you want to stop by the show and become, be a guest on the show and educate us, let us know. But I think it's really healthy for us to get together and not be afraid to ask these questions, and not be afraid to put our thoughts out there, what we think this all means, because there's some really heavy shit going on right now, and we need to figure this out. We need to at least make an effort to ask these questions, and ask what it could possibly mean. And then you bounce that idea off the next person, and they may have a little bit different perspective, but in the end, you can usually come to a consensus on what something means. And I think that's something that the Q movement, the Q drops, they showed that in real time, and that exercise where they put the clue out there, and then there was the bread makers, they're making it, and they're putting all their different theories out there, and then there's the consensus that comes together. They're doing it the same way with X, now with the community notes, right? They're getting people's opinions on different things, whether it's factual or not factual. So it's getting more people involved in asking questions. And you might have come up with something, or come across something that I haven't seen, and then you throw that my way, and it might change my perspective, right? And so if we just stay in our own little bubbles, and we don't look outside our box, then we can't really fully grow. So I'm excited about this. I want to welcome FinTech for stopping by. Thank you for joining us. We're talking
that's
about
great.
we're talking about the debt clock, and the little clues that they're throwing out there that are kind of inspiring folks to look into things a little deeper and start asking some questions. But yeah, what else do you? Mother Goose says an interesting dig would be how Trump and Mnuchin brought the Fed back under the Treasury. Oh yeah, that would definitely. That there's so many things. And she also said Socratic questioning, which, I mean, it really is a helpful way to learn. in my
Remember how we were going back and forth? We contacted each other and said, "Did you notice? Did you see what Mnuchin and Trump just did? You caught the significance of that, right?" That was, remember when all that happened? Oh, that was some fun times.
but
And we were waiting for things to happen and it didn't happen.
what I love the
It was
most,
awesome.
yeah, what I love the most
It
about this
was
space
awesome.
is that there are so many people that are actually giving this their attention. And so you have somebody to call and say, "Oh my gosh, do you believe that?" Like, what do you think this means? What do you think that means? And I mean, that's part of the reason for the show is there's lots of shows out there that are, the expert niches where they're, you go on and it's all technical, and people, we want to learn about that kind of stuff. And then there's the ones where they're fighting and debating and all this kind of stuff. We're just trying to get information out there and ask questions and kind of get you guys involved in it as well, and grow this community, and get people more comfortable with asking questions and coming on a spaces or coming into a YouTube and starting to poke your head out there a little bit is what is that. At least that's my goal. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
So, Melissa, if I might add, when we first started this tonight, we were working off of a post that Santa Surfing put up on, what is it, the 9th of November. Yeah. It's about the debt clock. But he put in a couple of statements. First, of the reworded quote by Woodrow Wilson. And then we talked about the Federal Reserve System and how the value dropped to 3 cents. The value of the dollar dropped to 3 cents in just 110 years. 3 cents.
3 cents. Nuts.
For every dollar. So think about how much money you make per hour if you're a working person and how much that's actually getting you in goods and services. So then let's look at the price of gold. And I don't know if you looked at this 200-year chart of gold. But of course, as it said here in the post, in 1913, the ounce of gold was about $20 an ounce. But if you go back and look at a number of years before that, going all the way, it was like it hadn't changed. There was sometimes it changed there. It went up to $35, but most of the time it was $20.67 an ounce, going all the way back to 1878, 79, that it was just staying at that one price.
Yeah. I pulled it up. I'm
there.
sure.
It was, isn't that interesting?
Well, yeah. How stable it was.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Very stable. And here we are at 2023, we're right around $2,000 an ounce. Can you imagine how well people would be doing if we just stayed on the gold standard? How many families would be farther ahead? Maybe we wouldn't have the homeless problems that we're having. I think a lot of those problems are because of substance abuse, but I also believe a lot of the problems before this really got out of hand with the substance abuse is that people just couldn't afford to, like, work in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, for instance. They were not in those high-tech, like programming jobs, software engineers or anything like that. They were more or less the support staff. And they had to drive in a couple of hours to commute time just to be able to afford a home to live in. But some people weren't even able to do that. They were living in their cars to be able to get their, $50,000 a year job, and they were working as admins and so forth. And that was pretty good money, right? Pretty good money if you didn't live near those businesses. But if you lived, 100 miles away, you can afford to live there with your $50,000 a year income. And that's just not the case right now. I mean, it's just such a complex problem. But Yeah.
It's really changed. I mean,
because of the value of the dollar. I mean, that when your dollar is only worth 3 cents a dollar, you don't have to, have a degree in rocket science to figure out that this the problem with the currency,
yeah.
the value
Well,
of the currency. It's
I
not
have,
money. It's
I
a
have
it's a
hope.
trust system.
I have hope. I
I do
have hope
too.
for the future, and I hope that I'm right. I hope that I'm right. That we are working out some of this madness, and that we are going to go into a more level playing field and get our money backed by something for real. And instead of this funny debt based money where as we said, it's a handful of folks that are controlling everything, and they're playing little games and testing little things out, and the bigger they became, the greater influence they had over everything. And it's the illusion of competition when it comes to businesses, and that when you're owning the same people are kind of owning everything but pretending that they don't, basically. So it's just a big fat mess in that respect, but definitely have hope that things are being uncovered. And like Mother Goose said, I mean, they say, November is going to be quite a month. And I just want people to know or realize also that things didn't happen overnight. They're not going to be fixed overnight either. The groundwork, the foundation is being laid, in my opinion. The correction to all of these things, and if the problems would have been addressed in a fashion such as pulling a peg out of underneath a Jenga pile to come tumbling down, it would have had catastrophic effect on the world, really, because of how everything is so tied. And so I think things have to be handled very delicately, and I think that they are. And I can only pray that those that are in charge of this quote unquote operation are the good guys and not the bad guys. Because, but all I see is good happening. And like I said, the more that we educate ourselves, the better off we are from protecting ourselves against the crazy.
I personally believe good always comes out ahead. Yeah. Good always wins. It's going to get a little mucky, and people are going to get hurt and disillusioned, but in the end, good wins.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
It should win.
Just want to give a shout out to Rosemary for having us up on the TV with on YouTube, streaming on Roku. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
She said we are delayed. I know that we are delayed on YouTube. I think it's because I chose the setting. I'm just learning all this technology, guys. But I chose the setting so that it wouldn't be so it'd be higher quality, I guess, streaming. So there's that delay factor there, but I'm not exactly sure if I did the right thing. Maybe next time I'll try to make it so it's the same and see if the video quality is any worse, better, indifferent type thing. But I don't know. What else do we got? Does anyone else have anything they want to input? Did you have anything else you want to touch on?
Well, I did, and it went poof out of my head. So it's going to come back. I had this, I was trying to see if this was related to what was in Santa Surfing, because somehow I've got the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs up as well. And I'm going, was this in the post somewhere? This is a very interesting
Well, I
here.
mean, if you think about it though, when it comes to the banking, and what did Jeffrey Epstein do? They said, he was kind of like the middleman between the rich. You had to have billions of dollars or something to even deal with him, right? He kind of controlled their money for them and whatever. Um, and so, you had
But
the like
he
JP
wasn't
Morgan.
he was not a trained financial person, though. This is what we've learned about Jeffrey
You don't
Epstein. He was a
you don't need to
fraud.
know about finance to handle billions. I mean, why would you need
No,
to
not at all.
Yeah, it's
I
just
don't know. It,
one big fat
it's
cover
just
up.
kind of interesting looking at this thing about who's on there. There's 116 pages to go through.
Holy
And
smokes.
because it's in a CSV log, well, in this particular file, it would take some time. I was thinking about downloading it and seeing if I can sort it and
Yeah.
see just
Who's on
which
there?
names we come up with.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want
but I
I'll
don't
do it.
think I'd be able to do it during this broadcast
Oh,
because it's in PDF. Let me see if it will let me. No, it's in a PDF. That's why it's doing this. I'll have to find another source with that.
yeah.
That would be another Beyond the Brink episode.
Yes. That'd be definitely something beyond the brink that would push you to your limit and drive you to the brink of change.
I know this has taken us off of our subject tonight, but I just flashed on Brian O'Shea as well. Have you seen him being out there? He wrote a Substack the other day, and he was, I never watched Dr. Drew's podcast, but for some reason it got on my radar, and there was Brian O'Shea.
Oh, really?
And he was talking about his concern about what's going on with these groups, and that there is an app that they operate, these provocateurs, okay, kind of like what happened with BLM and Antifa. And what he's discovered is that they operate off of an app, right? And
what app?
well in advance, they can go to any city, any town in any country and have their propaganda material set up in a print shop, ready to be picked up at any given time. They can even have DoorDash deliver food to their provocateurs in any given city or town, wherever these services are available. All they have to do is access their app. And what he was saying, he goes, it's not so much that the app is the problem. It's that these organizations are using this technology. So what he was suggesting is that technology is available to us too, to organize ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
not to be provocateurs, but to use these services in a way that, non-provocative type of people would use. But we should use them. It's not that the service is bad.
Well, and it's just, if you've ever been on Discord, you have a private Discord, you can organize things, you can make lists and communicate with each other on the fly. I think I don't use it, but some people use WhatsApp.
I don't use that either.
There's
weird things happen
right.
on WhatsApp.
Telegram. There are all kinds of apps that we can communicate using. And you're right. I mean, he's right. The technology has evolved so much, and it makes it really easy to organize something. And there is no reason why we can't organize, whether it's just us getting together and sharing ideas like we're trying to do here. Is something like people use meetups also, right? To have more than
that's a way to do it. Sure. But that's more an in-person thing. These apps allow the communication to happen and kind of gives like the go signal, if you're going to have, like what happened with the Summer of Love. when they
Yeah, but I
destroyed
mean,
the cities. And yeah,
if you use Discord and you have people in your private Discord that only the people that are in there, and they send out, at everyone, and then go time, boom, you've communicated with
yeah, I
everybody
guess
in
they
your
could,
group
sure.
very
Yeah,
easily, right? So I don't know which app he's talking about, but that's not
it,
surprising to me at all that they're doing.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, that was the essence of his story, is that these people are very organized, beyond organized, and it's easier for them to be in any given city in any given time, and have an organization of people do their thing.
Mhm.
Some of them travel to other cities as well. He's obviously concerned,
Mhm.
as he has been on some of his other posts that we've followed on about that.
We
So
should try to get him
another
on the show
source,
sometime. I wonder if he would
I
say
think
yes.
he would. He
Yeah, we should ask him.
he seems like
Uh,
who was it? Dr. Drew's wife said, "I can't believe how soft spoken he is. He's
mm.
just so matter of fact and soft spoken and calm." And it's just like, and this is some badass warrior, right? He's
He
just
just
kind of,
posted his wife's birthday. That's the post I saw
yes,
today, and I'm like, oh, what a sweetheart,
yeah,
you know. So
yes. Um,
Great.
so the other news I heard, and I don't know, maybe some of the wisdom here in this space might be able to chime in. But what I had also heard is that hotel rooms are being booked and filled by military people all over the country, all over the
Mm,
country, and Trump is not having any more rallies. They're not scheduled for the rest of the year. Now,
really?
since
Oh,
I
I didn't
got
know
this
that.
information, I've not had a chance to look into this because I don't recall him, Trump, being stopped because of holidays from his
Mhm.
rallies. If I recall,
No.
he did one like before or after Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
before or after Christmas. It didn't
Yeah.
matter. But
No, I didn't.
why is he not doing rallies? And
Mm,
again, I'll have to look and see if he is off the calendar for the rest of the year.
mm.
It might go lend to the November surprise, the November to remember thing. It's just very interesting. But what got my hackles up was the military personnel staying in hotels around the country. Now that's they're not National Guard, it's just said military personnel.
Mm.
So are they? Is this the time? Is this go time? Is this when they're going to round up all of the bad hombres and get them out of here? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, you hear so many different theories of things that are going on. It wouldn't surprise me if that is happening. Um, and it might just be a phase. So, I think sometimes people think one big huge thing is going to happen, and then everything is going to be different, and I think it's been happening in phases over time. There's been this part, this tackled, that tackled. um and so perhaps there is going to be something kind of big going down. What did I read? um There was a post on X saying, has anybody noticed that Trump still has security detail, the presidential type security detail? I'm like, yeah. I mean, most people just don't even they don't either they can't stand him so much that they won't acknowledge anything about him whatsoever. If it leads to any suspicion that he still has any kind of significance, they don't pay attention. Or then there's just the others that are just like, it's not even on their radar, and the mainstream media is not talking about it. So I'm like, what did Ryan say
But the
too?
thing of it is, he's entitled to that detail, and being that he is an assassination risk.
Yeah,
Whether
big time.
he's got presidential detail or not, the Secret Service is responsible for his safety. So they may be just evaluating the risk. I happen to personally believe he has a presidential detail. But let's say if that wasn't
Yeah,
the
let's say
case,
it
maybe a
wasn't. Just say
George
it was
W.
just
Bush,
normal.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a George W. Bush. I mean, when he would had a lot of attention going his way, he had a pretty big detail too, and he was out of office.
Well, you know, the other thing
But
is what I said in my response to that is that, I mean, he has had his own security detail for a very long time that he paid for himself,
right,
and that with people that he trusts, right? I don't even think
right.
even when he is in the office that he just automatically trusted their Secret Service people. I don't think so. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah, I'm not even going to mention. He's a very interesting character, and I'm glad that he's been putting forth the effort that he has over these many years, even more years than people even realize, that he's been working in the background on some things. And I know for some people that's a sensitive subject, and they, they can't stand them. But I just always try to say to people is, don't let your hate or animosity or frustration, with some specific person or subject to blind you from seeing other things. And I think I mean, because that's the objective, right? To divide people and to create these characters where, the left versus right, black versus white, this religion versus that religion, whatever, and to just get people to fight always. And if we're fighting, we're not giving attention to the things that are really important and seeing things that are right in front of our face. And I think that's very successful. And I find it ironic with him in particular that he was beloved by so many people prior to becoming the president. And it's funny because I didn't like the guy. I liked him when I was younger. I'd see him sometimes on Oprah or whatever, and then I'd read the tabloids, and I'd just be like, whatever, this dude's ugly. Like, why is he getting all these girls? Like, who cares who he's married to or dating? That was kind of my attitude back then. And then when he started being on The Apprentice and stuff, all my friends that were, like I would say liberal friends, they all loved him, thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And, oh gosh, you don't watch The Apprentice, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, it's not my thing, and man, as soon as he was president and I started I would see them talking on mainstream media, they would say, he said this and he said that. And I'd be like, oh, is that real? Like, did he really say that? And I'm somebody that wants to see something with my own eyes. And that was the whole reason I even went to Twitter in the first place, is because I wanted to see what Trump was saying. And then I
wanted to see him say mean things.
Well, yeah, I
His
mean,
mean
I mean,
tweets.
honestly, I wasn't even a fan of the dude at all. And I started reading or listening to his actual speeches, on whatever things that they would take out of context that he said. And I would listen to the whole thing, objectively, and I'd go, well, they just flat out freaking lied, like with what he said. Like, why are they doing that? And even shows that I watched and people that I liked. And I'm just like, I started looking at him differently and like, well, what the hell's going on here? And the more that I listened to him and researched him, like I'm a researcher, and I started connecting dots, and I'm like, man, I've never seen anything. And then I just kept saying for like 2 years straight, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I've never seen anything like this in my life, the way that they've gone after him. And then that's what kind of pushed me to think, maybe there's more to meet the eye. And so all I'm trying to say to those of you who do not like that man, don't focus on that. Just kind of don't let it blind you to other things. So that's just my opinion.
So I just put up this in the chat, and so you can see this, Melissa, but it's a post by Tao Mora on November the 9th. And he writes, just a thought using double meaning. Woodrow Wilson and 3 cents in 2023 if you underline the W in Woodrow,
Oh,
the W in Wilson, and 3 cents, 3,
yeah.
2023. So WW3 in 2023.
Oh,
Is that a double meaning? Oh, you get it now, huh?
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they
I
sure
mean,
want that.
how
They sure want that, don't they?
how perceptive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
I mean, we could do a
Yeah.
whole show. We could do 100 shows on the meanings and all the clues that have been laid out there. And really, I think it's pretty darn fascinating for those that are interested. So if you guys are interested in hearing something more along those lines, let us know, and we'll do it. Or if you have a suggestion for a topic that you'd like us to cover, or if you would be interested in being a guest on the show, let us know, reach out to us. Yeah, I mean, we really appreciate everybody that is supporting us. You know, Boomer, Rosemary, Toasty, thank you so much, buddy, for coming. I appreciate you. Mother Goose, we appreciate you so much. My friend Lola came, and my friend Kombucha stopped by, and it really means a lot to me that you guys are coming and supporting this, and trying to help us out, and engaging in conversation with us. And so we love it. We love you guys. What else? You got anything else, Christy?
I don't have anything else. I could just keep pulling things out of my head, but they're not related to what we were talking about tonight.
I know. As I said, Melissa could
But,
squirrel. I could squirrel like so easy.
I could squirrel with you, girl.
I could squirrel it so easily. What I was going to try to do is when I get to the stop stream, and all this kind of stuff, I was going to try to do the outro, share the outro, and then do the stop stream and stop this and stop that. So if you want me to give it a try, I can try to do it.
Well,
But
that would mean that we're going to say goodbye and good night for the evening.
yeah,
And is that what you're saying, my friend?
that's what I think I'm saying. As long as unless you have anything that you wanted to talk about further.
I
But
really don't. I mean,
I
it
think
was
we
a
nailed.
short
I think we
post
nailed it.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yep, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
did a great job on the Woodrow Wilson content in the Federal Reserve. That was very good. Thank you for doing
Oh,
that.
yeah. Thank you. I tried to
So
make it a little bit entertaining instead of just sitting here reading it, but I really thought it was a good article, and I'm going to post those
yeah,
links in
it
the
was.
bottom description. And I'll post it in the thread for the Twitter Spaces or X Spaces, so that folks can look them up themselves, so they'll know exactly what we were covering. But in any event, so I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to play the outro, and everything's going to go smoothly.
Yeah,
We hope to see
let's
you
hope
guys
so.
back again. And with that, we hope you have a good evening, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you, guys.